Okay, hello everybody. Hello viewers and hello Funny. So
Hello,
thank you for
viewers.
joining. Thank you for joining with us with another episode. Okay. And today we have something really important. Of course, every topic in regards to teaching is very important and imperative. And we really cannot say that another topic is less important than another one. However, this topic is primarily very important if you are a teacher for other language, as in if you are a language teacher or a trainer, and if you are handling an ESL or a EFL students. So today's topic, if you can already see that it is error corrections, and error correction is so crucial because how you correct errors of your learners depends that if you can handle the errors and also without letting the students or the language learners feel slighted or demotivated, the teacher will have to help them, take them from L1 to L2 towards desired results. So I'm not saying that it's a very easy task, neither am I going to say that it's an impossible task, but definitely it is a challenging task. And it's very important for the teachers to know how to handle errors. So teachers, as you know, that errors and mistakes, and often these two words are, they are used interchangeably. However, there is a difference. So Funny, can you tell me a difference between error and a mistake?
Well, I think error is something which we make while learning something. Probably inside a classroom, the learners make it's an error. And
Yeah.
after learning something, when we go and apply it in the real world, if we commit error there, it's called a mistake.
Yes, so error is when we are learning something new, and every time we are trying to execute and we are implementing the knowledge. So if there are pitfalls, those are errors. However, if I know something already and yet uh, I don't do it correctly, so either I will be doing it, just as a slip of memory. Definitely, nobody wants to do a mistake, intentionally. But mistake is something which I know, but it just happened. Okay, it's just an accident. Whereas errors, um, it's not something that you know it already. You are still learning. You're still in the process. Okay, so that's why we call it error correction. It's not mistake corrections. Okay, so let's begin. And today we are going to see that errors, how many types of errors are there, and how you can make this, the whole process, interesting for the learners, as well as on yourself also, it doesn't have to be too taxing. Right. So if you see from the first slide, there is a situation here, and this little boy is saying that, I putted the plates on the table. So he says, I putted the plates. And you see what the mother, how she replies. She says, oh, you mean I put the plates on the table? And the child says, no, I putted them all by myself. Well, this is just, it's in a very humorous way. However, the mother actually, takes this initiative with the hope that the child will say, "Oh yeah, I have put them on the table all by itself." But he went on saying, "I put it." Anyway, that's on a lighter note. So let's move ahead. Right. So, question is, who are going to correct the errors? Of course, teachers will. But if you see on in a scale of 3, who comes on the topmost, part? Is the teacher who's on, on the first list and first in the list? No. So first, we must always give the learners an opportunity if they are aware. And most of the times, they are successful in identifying the errors. And if they are able to identify, they shall be able to correct them by themselves. But there is a condition here. You don't expect this to happen when your learners are the beginner, elementary, or high elementary level. This awareness is not there, or should I say that they're not able to identify the errors unless and until they have reached the pre-intermediate or intermediate stage. So self-correction, and if the self-correction is not working by then, and then definitely it's a peer correction, because they anytime knowing from the peer is far less intimidating than the teacher correcting on spot. But the teacher definitely has a role to play immediately if you are working with high beginners or elementary level of learners. Then it's the teacher who needs to correct instantly. So these are the three, basically the primary form of corrections. Yeah, this is a small quotation that we wanted to share with you. And this is for you to remember that a coach is someone who can give correction without causing resentment. And I think this is really, really insightful, because very often, when we have to correct somebody, we make them feel that, oh, you are so wrong. So without letting them feel that they're wrong or it's shameful, it's just to make them more aware, and they are happy to rectify or get rectified, without feeling ashamed about it or feeling demotivated. So this is very important for all of us to remember. Okay, so as the picture says, and this is not something that is being depicted, in an animated way, but this is the truth, that the dilemma, for the teachers over the time and still remains that how am I supposed to correct, especially when they are conversing. And yeah, it's quite tricky to know when and if to correct the students, and if at all you have to correct the students, how to go about it. And sometimes teachers are so much, impatient that they just want to correct each and every small thing that they hear. Well, it's good that you're attentive, but that is the most trickiest part, because it's also dangerous, or should I say, it could be dangerous, of the resulting to overcorrect. So overcorrection is something not just in regards to language learners or students of any subjects, but none of us, I'm sure, would like to be corrected every now and then, because not only you start losing your confidence, you also start losing interest in the matter, in the subject, and you would just not want to perform the next time. So without making them lose the motivation and without even disrupting the flow of the class, we still have to go ahead and do the error correction. Question is how? Okay, so here I have something really interesting for all of you, and you can implement this with your learners and see how this is working. Okay. So the question is that when and how should you correct your students? It's really important that you have to ask the students how they want to be corrected, okay? And one of the ways is you give the students a choice on how much they want to be corrected, particularly in a class activity or in a group conversation. So one of the effective way is to create a traffic light to put on their desk. And how do you do it? You just take a strip of a card with 3 circles. So one is red, one orange, and one green. You fold it into triangle with a bit of a sellotape, and that all it does the trick. So students, they point the circles towards you and they indicate whether or not they want the correction. So if there is an error, and at that point of time, the student is just not interested, might just point at the red circle, and the red will denote that don't correct me at all, just don't. Now the question remains that if I'm not correcting the learner, so what do I do? Do I completely ignore? Okay, at that point of time, I'm not correcting, but the error remains error. What happens to that? So yeah, whether or not the students wants to be corrected, you as the facilitator, you have to keep a note of that error. That point of time, the student chooses not to be corrected, but that's okay, okay? If that means that The student can still go ahead without feeling demotivated and disrupted and doesn't want to be corrected in front of the peer, that's fine. But you keep the error noted because you can always go back to the student one-on-one, okay, not in front of everybody. So if the learner is now denoting or pointing at orange, what does it mean? It means that correct things which are really important, teacher. Okay, so yes, so for a sentence that he or she is speaking, there, before you give the feedback, you can always ask, so you can show the circle, how much do you want me to correct you? And if the student shows the orange, then you will have to only correct what is necessary and a must. And the other, minor errors, you can just put aside. So you can, but it's always good to inform, and you can always tell them that, so this is what you have to really, know right now. And it's important that I bring into your notice. You should make a note of it. You can practice one more time if you want to. However, there are other things which I wish to tell you, not now, but I'll definitely get back on. I will get back on it later on. And if the student shows you the green circle, then what does the green mean? So green means that, yes, teacher, you can correct me as much as you want. Sorry, as much as you want. And there you can give a detailed explanation. So definitely try this, but a word of caution, don't try it with elementary level of learners. Try it with pre-intermediate, so where you know that they can take their own decisions, okay? Because if their linguistic competency is really low, trust me, it's no point asking them or asking for their permission. You will have to take a call, and you will have to know that when and how much you need to correct them. But other than that, you can try this technique, and it really works without, them feeling less confident, or they feel that the next time they don't want to attempt it because they feel embarrassed in front of the peers. So yeah, this technique is quite effective. Definitely try it out. All right, so now the question is that what is more important, fluency or accuracy? And this is a common question that I have been receiving, and I'm receiving most of my years of training, for TEFL. So the point is that accuracy is important. However, you will have to first focus on fluency. You will have to help your language learners develop fluency, because if there is no enough vocabulary and they really don't know how to use the vocabulary in a format or in a structured manner, there's no point or a question of accuracy coming into the picture. Because initially, if you are focusing too much of an accuracy, that is too much of a pressure for both the teacher as well as on the participant, and that will immediately will give them the message that this is too much, okay, this is too much to handle, and too much of pressure on them. So that's why, for a class discussion, fluency would be appropriate, and more speaking activities are appropriate. So speaking and listening should be focused initially, followed by reading, and gradually to writing. And the accuracy starts coming in when they are doing more of reading and writing. But you see, that's much in the later stage. Okay, so the important thing is that your students, they must not shy away from expressing themselves, and it's important that they also learn to think on their feet. Now, so let's just have a little bit of a look on self-correction. So what is it all about? So the self-correction is the first port of call when you are correcting or you wish to correct your students. And that can be done by the student themselves. So students can often correct themselves, when they realize they have made, well, here it says they're a mistake, but the reason why it has been mentioned as a mistake, because the student already knows it. So if the student is correcting, okay, and you know that the student knows it already, then it's not an error that he or she is making. It's just that maybe at that point of time, he or she might have forgot. So that's why sometimes the mistake is simply a slip as I had mentioned earlier in this video, that mistake will only happen when you as a teacher, you know that they already know this. But if it is coming across as an incorrect structure or an inappropriate usage of the word or the format, it could be just a slip if the student is successful in correcting by himself or herself. And now moving on to the next form of correction. So after the self-correction is the peer correction. So you see the peer correction, students can always correct one another. And most of the time, I will recommend and I will strongly suggest that you use this technique of peer correction. So peer correction, this often helps to create a very positive class atmosphere. And the students, they really appreciate when the other student or the peer is giving them the feedback and they're so open about it. It can cause, sometimes among the few, it might just cause a little bit of altercation, but that's okay. That's a part of class. But in most cases, one student always is open in receiving feedback from another student. And one of the reasons is that teacher is not only the source, or teacher just should not be the source of error correction, but it's a good practice to learn from one another. Okay. Yeah, and the teacher correction is very much, self-explanatory, because a teacher is when the teacher is making the correction for the students. So now the question is, if the teacher is correcting, then how should the teacher correct? And that is where we have to actually pay more attention, because when the teacher is correcting, the teacher, needs or can actually use many different form of techniques. Now, in order to look at those techniques, we are going to come back again, all right, with different techniques. We want to discuss those techniques in details with you, and they're very effective. We can vouch on that. So please keep and watch for part 2 of error correction, where we are going to discuss about the techniques of how you can correct errors in the most effective way. Okay, so thank you viewers for watching this video, and please subscribe if you have not, and click on that bell icon so that every time we release a new video, you get an instant notification that you do not want to miss out on. If you really want to make your classroom an effective one, and if you want to be updated, as well as you want really handy ideas, well, this is the channel right away.